Hey everybody, you're watching We the Fandom, where we discuss comic books, pop culture, and the fandom experience. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more content. How's it going, everybody? Jacob here at We the Fandom, reviewing episode 5 of Loki, titled Journey into Mystery, which is both an accurate name for the episode, but also a reference to the comic book Journey into Mystery, which showed the first appearances of both Loki and Thor. This episode is pretty good at quick exposition dumps, which seems to be Marvel's way of wrapping up their Disney Plus series. But we get explanations both on the side of Loki and the other variants, as well as with Sylvie and Ravonna, but we're going to start with Loki. So the last episode ended on a big cliffhanger, with Loki being pruned, but showing up on some desolate world and met by 4 variant Lokis. This episode begins with that group becoming quickly acquainted with Loki, while also running away from the area as to not get caught by Goliath, which is a giant cloud monster who devours any and all life on this world, which is known as the Void. The Lokis end up traveling back to their secret base in what classic Loki calls Kid Loki's kingdom. Apparently, Kid Loki has earned the respect of the others for having killed his version of Thor. We sort of get the backstory of the others as well. Boastful Loki claims to have defeated both Captain America and Iron Man before obtaining all 6 Infinity Stones, but Alligator Loki and Classic Loki call him out for his lies, giving us the reason for why he's called Boastful Loki, although they don't actually explain why he has a hammer. With Classic Loki, his story diverges during Infinity War, where instead of trying to kill Thanos and getting killed himself, he used sorcery so well that he was able to trick Thanos and hide himself as a piece of debris on the ship, afterwards exiling himself on another planet, only to be taken by the TVA when he tried to leave. As far as Alligator Loki goes, all we know about him is that he ate the wrong neighbor's cat, which was apparently was his Nexus event, and we're told multiple times throughout the episode to not question the fact that an Alligator Loki even exists in the first place. After introductions, and with Loki quickly realizing that these variants have resigned themselves to staying in the Void, he decides to leave to try and find a way back to the TVA, only to be stopped by President Loki and a bunch more variants who made a deal with Boastful Loki to turn over his friends in exchange for President Loki's army. But of course, President Loki reveals he never intended to honor his side of the bargain, shortly before his army betrays him. So this episode is just filled with Loki betrayal after Loki betrayal after Loki betrayal. But this ends up leading into basically a Loki battle royale, with all these variant Lokis seemingly fighting each other without a real plan, as everyone is just betraying everyone. President Loki gets his hand bitten off by the Alligator Loki, and something interesting to note about Classic Loki, he seems to be the Loki who is strongest in magic, and mentions how physical weapons only hold Lokis back from their true potential. And that's going to come up again at the end of the episode. But he's able to use his magic to create a portal through which Classic Loki, Kid Loki, and Alligator Loki, as well as the main Loki, are able to escape with the intent to go find Goliath and try to find a way back to the TVA. Now let's talk about Sylvie and Ravonna. And in this instance, we actually learn less than what I was hoping for, and that's because Ravonna tries to betray Sylvie pretty quickly. Initially, she and Sylvie sort of agree to a truce to find out who is really behind the TVA, and a way to get to the Void to find out if Loki is actually still alive. And Ravonna explains that the Void is basically a point at the end of time where all time intersects, and because of that, time is basically stopped there, meaning people could theoretically survive, and it's where any and all things that are pruned end up. While Ravonna is explaining this, however, Miss Minutes, who is also there, kind of called a bunch of Minutemen who show up and try to take Sylvie, only for Sylvie to prune herself. Ravonna tries to go back to business as usual by lying to the Minutemen, but secretly she enlists Miss Minutes to find the records on the beginning of time, because even though she betrayed Sylvie, she does want to find out who really is behind the TVA. Getting back to Sylvie, she ends up in the Void, just like Loki did, and almost right away faces Goliath, who for a moment she's able to enchant, where she sees a vision of a castle. But just before she's about to be devoured, Mobius shows up in what looks like a pizza delivery car, saves her, and they're able to escape. But Sylvie basically comes up with the same kind of plan as Loki, which is to figure out how to stop Goliath in order to leave the Void. And in tracking Goliath, Mobius and Sylvie end up meeting up with the Loki group. The meeting of Loki and Sylvie wasn't as dramatic as I thought it would be. They kind of awkwardly try to gloss over the feelings they have for each other as they prepare to possibly sacrifice themselves to take down the TVA. When they do finally catch up to Goliath, Sylvie gives Mobius a temp pad, and he decides he's going to go back to the TVA and try to find things out, I guess. Classic Loki, Kid Loki, and Alligator Loki decide that they want to stay in the Void, but they're not going to help Sylvie and Loki fight Goliath. In terms of Loki and Sylvie facing off against Goliath, it doesn't go as planned because Loki tries to distract the beast while Sylvie enchants it, but it quickly loses interest in Loki. However, at the last moment, classic Loki shows back up and he uses his sorcery to conjure an entire fake Asgard, and he uses that illusion to distract Goliath. It's pretty cool to see. I never would have thought Loki would be that powerful. He does get tired after a few minutes though, and with his illusions disappearing, he ends up getting devoured, but he ends up getting his glorious purpose moment through that. And his sacrifice was just enough for Loki and Sylvie to both enchant Goliath, causing it to disappear and reveal a portal through which we see a castle floating out in space. Now, this castle could belong to Kang, who is the most obvious time-traveling villain. However, I also thought that the castle looked like Dr. Doom's, a villain who has also dealt in time travel before. Of course, going off the Disney Plus series so far, in my opinion, the reveal is likely to be disappointingly simple and unimaginative. Before I end the video, I wanted to go over some Easter eggs real quick. As the Lokis are traveling to their hideout throughout the void, we see various artifacts. To include what looks like a giant yellow jacket helmet, the Thanos copter, which first appeared in Spidey Super Stories issue number 39 in March of 1979, and was probably one of the lamest moments in Marvel Comics. We also see Mjolnir, and next to it in a jar, what I believe to be the character Throg, who is basically a frog version of Thor, and first appeared in Thor 364 in February of 1986. Later in the episode, we also get the USS Eldridge, which is a ship involved in the famous Philadelphia experiment during the Second World War, in which it was claimed that the destroyer escort USS Eldridge was rendered invisible, teleported to New York, teleported to another dimension where it encountered aliens, and teleported through time, resulting in the deaths of several sailors, some of whom were fused with the ship's hull. Now, this whole story is widely regarded to be a complete hoax, but this show has played with the idea of history a few times, so that's just another little interesting tidbit. And lastly, I wanted to talk about Goliath, because in this episode, while he does seem quite powerful, he seems to be regarded more as like a guard dog of the void, standing between the Lokis and whoever is actually behind the TVA. This seems different than the comic book version, as in the comics, Goliath, who first appeared in Avengers Terminatrix Objective in 1993, was almost something of a rival to Kang, as Goliath held dominion over a larger amount of time than Kang did, which caused Kang to put up a barrier to protect himself and his Chrono Empire. We still have yet to see who is behind all this, but it's weird seeing such a threat being reduced to guarding a barrier between dimensions. But I am excited for the finale, and I hope you guys are too. If you are, please leave a comment below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'll see you all in the next video.